For decades, the U.S.-Mexico border area has been a zone of death, pain, and suffering inflicted by U.S. imperialism upon tens of millions of migrants. People have died trying to reach it.
Ahora lo que me queda es ir a una caja de madera a darle su último adiós.
People have died trying to cross it. People have died if they get across and then are hunted like animals over deserts, mountains, and raging streams in searing heat or freezing cold. People have been run over by trucks on lonely rural blacktops. The corpses of people bitten by rattlesnakes have been left to rot, miles from help. Millions have been expelled or deported, back to the US-created poverty and violence they are trying to escape. The stories, songs, and poems of their anguish could fill volumes. These are not random incidents. They are a direct result of the relentless exploitation enforced by brutal repression the U.S. has inflicted on the peoples and countries of this hemisphere for over a century. They are a direct consequence of the policies and actions taken by the ruling class of this country, both Democrats and Republicans. And now, a massive leap in that repression will quite possibly erupt very soon. On May 11th, Title 42 expires.
Title 42 is part of the U.S. legal code dealing with public health. During the height of the COVID-19 crisis, the Trump-Pence fascist regime used it to expel hundreds of thousands of people seeking refuge in the U.S., denying them the international human right to apply for asylum. The Biden administration also took up use of Title 42 and used it to expel about 2.4 million people, far surpassing the fascist Trump. But now, with Title 42 coming to an end, leaders of both the Democrats and the Republic-Fascists and the major news media have been warning of a surge of immigrants at the border when Title 42 expires.
A rush toward the southern border.
Title 42 set to expire on Thursday. Authorities are now bracing for up to 10,000 migrants a day.
One of the most consequential immigration policies in U.S. history.
As the U.S. prepares for a surge in migrants.
Surge of migrants.
Surge in migrants.
Migrant surge.
This is a crisis for this system. This system cannot absorb all these immigrants and the millions more coming behind them into the already strained economy, with millions of people already being forced to scramble for the same social services, jobs, and resources. It cannot absorb the enormous numbers of people coming without further inflaming the fanatically racist fascists in society and in the government. These are enormous numbers of people who this system has no future for except death and misery.
Ay, Dios mío, mis hijas. Mis hijas. ¿Por qué crucé? Porque mis hijas corren peligro en Colombia. Y nos vinimos para acá, para que ustedes nos ayuden y nos puedan darles un mejor futuro, que no quiero que mis hijas desaparezcan.
And over in Mexico is very dangerous because I have to pay the cartels when I'm traveling a lot of money. I'm just trying to seek a better life. I'm not a bad person, I'm not a violent person.
Enormous numbers of the most vulnerable people, men, women, and children, are being talked about as if they are an invading army by the very people who fucked up their countries with actual invading armies. U.S. troops have invaded Latin America more than 70 times, leaving occupying armies for months, years, and in some cases, decades. If you count all U.S. interventions in Latin America, including things like CIA-orchestrated coups, the number is over 100. And then these people who carry out brutal invasions and occupations have the gall to get up on television and talk about how wrong it is to cross a border illegally. On top of all this, then when thousands of people flee their homelands, human beings who ask for nothing more than a chance to breathe, a chance to live, a chance to survive, instead of welcoming them, instead of offering them refuge, the Biden administration has been systematically putting in place policies which make asylum essentially impossible for most people to get, all while rapidly preparing a surge of their own.
The Biden administration formally proposed barring asylum seekers at the southern border unless they first ask for asylum in a country they passed through. It's something the Trump administration tried but was blocked in court.
New restrictions for asylum, requiring asylum seekers to have first been denied asylum in another country and to have obtained an appointment at a port of entry using a government app, steps that advocates say violate U.S. law.
This policy is confusing because it is designed to confuse and keep out asylum seekers.
The Biden administration says they will deal with an expected surge towards the border with its own surge of personnel and resources. If you're someone with a heart, you might be thinking, that sounds nice. I'm sure he's sending food and medicine, doctors and social workers. But no. The surge Biden is talking about is a surge of thousands of troops from the U.S. military to assist the Border Patrol so its notoriously racist and brutal agents can be freed up to systematically arrest, detain, incarcerate, and deport massive numbers of asylum-seeking migrants.
President Biden has approved sending 1,500 troops to the border. The soldiers would be from active duty Army units.
It's like a war zone. Troops marching to the border to stop migrants from crossing.
We are prepared to be here indefinitely.
Sending them back to go die in hellhole conditions that the U.S. has created in their countries.
There's 5 here with 2 children. All of them are from Mexico. There's a good chance that this group right here will quickly get processed and will be back in Mexico by the end of the day.
Biden insists he isn't like Trump. He isn't saying you can't apply for asylum. He's just making it nearly impossible to get it, throwing all kinds of perilous hoops in the way and making it extremely difficult, and then smashing and repressing all the people who try to get in anyway. A bullshit facade of compassion and legality is what Biden and the Democrats think distinguishes them from the open racism, hatred of foreigners, and unbridled brutality of Trump and the Republic-fascists. Even with Biden preparing and initiating intense new levels of repression against what could be unprecedentedly large numbers of migrants trying to enter the U.S., to the Republic-fascists, this isn't nearly harsh enough. These fascists see the growing diversity of this country and the loss of this country's white Christian identity as an existential threat to this country's future. Compared to what they want to do, these fascists call what Biden is doing an open borders policy.
He has failed America with his open border policy.
All of this is a byproduct of Biden's open border policies.
But whether this country's war on immigrants is waged with build the wall, white supremacist fascism, or with Biden's heightened repression with a compassionate facade, this system has no answer other than more horror, more oppression, more misery, and more suffering. This crisis and the anguish it perpetuates is caused and driven by the global functioning of capitalism imperialism, especially U.S. imperialism, a system that has impoverished tens of millions of people across Mexico, Central, and South America. It has poisoned the earth and water, made agriculture more difficult or even impossible in some rural areas, and supported death squad governments that have murdered, brutalized, and raped countless people all as part of building up the riches and power of the good old USA. It's this system and its enforcers who are the real criminals, the real monsters and the real mass murderers, and they have no right to deny immigrants the right to asylum. They have no right to demonize and dehumanize immigrants. They have no right to invade, bomb, oppress, and exploit people all over the world. They have no right to condemn millions to poverty, misery, death, and destruction. That the rulers can do all these things, and this is deemed legitimate under their system and its constitution, just drives home that these imperialists have no right to rule. We need to be waking up and mobilizing all those who are sick and tired of seeing so many people being treated as less than human, to be part of standing up and opposing this shit now. No human being is illegal. These are our brothers and sisters. They are human beings, and no one should accept this as the new normal. And we need to be doing this as part of getting organized for an actual revolution to overthrow these imperialists and the system they enforce. It doesn't have to be this way. As the broadsheet, we are the RevCom states. Bob Avakian has expressed this profound reality. We can no longer afford to allow these imperialists to continue to dominate the world and determine the destiny of humanity. And it is a scientific fact that humanity does not have to live this way. A whole different way to organize society, a whole better world is possible. Down with the Biden-Trump persecution of immigrants. No human being is illegal. We don't have an immigration problem. We have an imperialism problem. This system must go. Now's the time to get organized for an actual revolution.